Thank you. I thank the Speaker, and I thank the Chairman, and I thank Mr. Huizinga, gentleman from Michigan, for all of your hard work to bring greater transparency to one of the most secretive agencies in the government, the Federal Reserve. You know, earlier this year, Fed Chair Janet Yellen said, and I quote, "The Federal Reserve is already one of the most transparent central banks around the..." Really? If that were the case, why is it that we've been seeing the following headlines in the last few years? March of last year, Forbes, Fed on target to raise interest rates in spring of 2015. Then in October, two Fed officials say interest rates to rise in mid-2015. Then in the Wall Street Journal just last month, Fed doubts grow on 2015 rate hike. And then just 2 weeks later in the Wall Street Journal, quote, Fed keeps December rate hike in play. So which is it? Mr. Speaker, a simple Google search on the subject pulls up a range of headlines on this topic, all pointing to one fact. There's a great deal of confusion and uncertainty as to how the Federal Reserve actually conducts its own monetary policy. And so the bottom line is the Fed needs to follow a rule when conducting monetary policy, and this bill, H.R. 3189, gives the Fed that flexibility to develop and implement its own rule as it sees fit, and then simply to report to Congress and the public should it find the need to deviate from it. And this will then do what? It'll give us greater economic certainty and moves us away from what we've seen, a Fed guessing game that we all become too used to. More troubling than all this, more troubling than the monetary policy, however, is the lack of transparency and accountability and openness surrounding their regulatory function. See, despite the Fed's failure to prevent the crisis in 2008, heck, despite their failure to even see it coming, the Dodd-Frank Act bestowed upon the Fed tremendous new regulatory authority that it is now using to try and regulate huge swaths of financial system. And what they're really trying to do is to stamp out all risk-taking, if you will, in our capital markets. See, the Fed fails to conduct any cost-benefit analysis of the rulemaking in that, and has conspired, if you will, with various secretive international bodies like the FSB, the Financial Stability Board, in so doing to try to rewrite the rules, if you will, of our financial system to the detriment of who? Well, the American capital markets. And so before us today is the FORM Act, which would do what? It would shine the light of day, if you will, on the Fed's regulatory operations so that all of us, the American public, can see actually what their powers are up to. And so now more than ever, we need transparency and accountability in the Federal Reserve, and I thank the Chairman and I thank the sponsor of the bill for moving the